Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Absolute Superman issue 10 by Jason Aaron, Carmine Di Giandomenico and Ulysses Areola. The Absolute Superman's battle with Ra's al Ghul continues this issue, but before we get there we return to Krypton, years in the past, where Jor-El leads a rescue team into a collapsed sunstone mine, finding the survivors inside. Unfortunately, the team are attacked by a group of magmoles, these giant underground dwelling creatures. Jor immediately picks up on that the creatures should not be this far from the center of the planet, almost as if they are scared of something and it's caused them to leave the center of the planet and come higher up towards the surface. So I'm very happy that we are finally getting more little parts of the book now returning to Krypton, getting to spend some time with Jor-El and the people of the planet, since it's probably the most interesting interpretation of Krypton in a long while. And also the Kents aren't really in the book all that much, so Jor-El and Lara are kind of their stand-ins, more obvious than not, because they're obviously farmers on Krypton, so we do kind of still get the Kents, except now they're on Krypton more or less. Just having Jor-El also be more proactive and more hands-on of a man instead of lab scientist we know and love is actually cool, and helps lay the foundation for Kal-El becoming a man of action like his father was as well. Jor refuses to leave any man behind, waiting for a fight from the Magmoles. The Magmoles soon come for the group, and upon remembering his son Kal and his wife Lara are waiting for him back at home, Jor is given the strength to fight on. Aaron delivers a fantastic bit of narration here for Kal-El as he talks about how his family's way of life is assaulted on all sides, be it from the creatures here in the cave or from the ruling class ruthlessly raping the land and destroying their planet. However, the elves and their people's toiling and hardship has made them into literal men of steel, something we saw back in issue 1 is literally what they are called on the planet. Jor and his team fight off the creatures, as in the present on Earth, the Lazarus Core facility in Greenland is assaulted by Superman, who makes short work of the jets sent out after him. However, he makes sure all the pilots ejected to safety first. The base cannons come online and open fire on the yet unseen hero, and their design immediately stood out to me, and it's because they are the top part, the barrel part of the E-11 blaster rifle from Star Wars. These are the guns the stormtroopers use, just blown up into scale into the size of a cannon. Inside the base, the news reports on the accused terrorist Timmy Olsen being captured by Lazarus. Jimmy is pretty upset that the news got his name wrong, and Lois makes a quip about that's to be expected, being that reporters are all morons, which is a really funny line coming from Lois Lane, who's often considered the greatest reporter of all time. As the peacemakers move to their action stations, Lois grabs Jimmy, whispering for him to shut up, otherwise they will all be killed. Ra's al Ghul meanwhile oversees the battle, eager to see his son. Ra's tells Brainiac that he doesn't really like the location for this final fight, but Brainiac knows that the simulations recommended this area, as while Superman is powered by the sun, Greenland won't see sun rays for another 37 days, meaning the longer Superman fights here, the more he will exhaust his solar energy reserves, and his body won't be able to regenerate anymore. Ra's doesn't like Superman having to be weak, wanting him to be strong, since he plans on making Superman whole. This pairing of Ra's and Brainiac is just so fucking good. It's two villains who, to my knowledge, have not actually been paired together, and yet their wants and needs here align perfectly, at least in this universe, and it makes for a wonderfully evil pairing. Chris Smith arrives, reporting for duty, and Chris gets a brief moment of his own mind back as he asks if he's actually going to be able to win this fight this time, being that he was prevented from killing Superman when they fought in Smallville. Ra's cuts Brainiac's orders off and demands that Smith go and make God proud, giving him a kryptonite bullet. Outside the base, the Lazarus army is laid to waste by Superman and his sunstone dust, and we get a very Batman moment here where the dust is kind of creeping over the icy battlefield and the peacemakers are being pulled into it and into the night by it. Again, I fucking love the idea of this sentient suit and cape and how Aaron is deploying it. It's not like the New 52, which that was a change just for the sake of it to be different. This one actually has form, function, and even its own character. Like, it's a character in the story. Ra's wants to know if Superman is killing the men, but Brainiac tells him he's actually leaving them alive, stranded miles away from the base so they can't return to the fight quickly. Ra's needs Superman to kill, so he intends to enact phase 2 of their plans. The Omega Men soon arrive at the base and begin their own attack on the Lazarus facility. Primus demands that they find Jimmy Olsen and kill any who get in their way. Lois meanwhile does the whole double agent double cross thing, as when Jimmy tries to escape with her, she clocks him in the head with her gun and takes him hostage, telling Jimmy again to shut up since she has it under control. Chris Smith soon joins the battle, wanting Lois to watch what he he is about to do to Superman. Chris, who I'm just going to call Metallo because that's what he really is, blasts off into the sky with his jetpack and the kryptonite bullet Raish gave him. Aaron dives back into Superman's no-kill rule, something he's been playing around with the last few issues, and this is kind of where all of the issues starts to sort of like click together and why we're getting these flashbacks to Krypton and what Jor is doing with these creatures, and this is where it all starts to make sense. As a big part of Raish's plan is to make Superman resort to killing. It's good to kind of break him, but nothing so far has actually worked. Superman knows that Chris is coming for him and has a weapon fueled with his dead homeworld in it, and he's killed before and he's been rewarded for it, so he will keep killing until he is stopped. There's a massive explosion in the sky and Chris is thrown down into the ice below, beaten and bloody after only 4 seconds. Despite beating him, Superman mulls over he could actually stop Chris full stop, thinking about how with a puff of his breath he could shatter his spine, making him paraplegic, or he could hurl his heart into space with such speed that Chris would actually still be alive to actually see it be pulled from his body. Kal ends up trying to convince himself not to do any of those things, but what makes him think of it is his father's words to him. Years later, Jor-El takes Kal out into the fields around their home, telling him that he had to kill the mag moles in the cave since he had no choice, and the moles were driven mad by a rage that drove them up from the mantle, making them unstoppable monsters. Kal thinks that he did the right thing, but Jor doesn't really think so, knowing that that's what he'll tell himself and what they tell themselves to justify the tough decisions they do. However, they cannot lose sight of what makes up cruelty and inhumanity, especially when they are the ones being cruel ones. This is such a thoroughly interesting sequence since this would usually be a Park Kent thing, you know, teaching young Clark about right and wrong, life and death, you know, there is always another way, you know, the way the world works basically. It's really neat to see that we get that now with Jor-El, and it kind of feels like it has like much bigger effect on Kal-El because it's like his real blood father telling him and imparting him this wisdom to him. That's kind of been a running theme with Aaron's work here on Superman. It's all about like fathers and sons, and it reminds me of that quote from the Superman movie, you know, the son becomes the father and father becomes the son. You know, it's all about, you know, passing on legacy and passing on strength, wisdom, you know, stuff like that. It's stuff that you have learned as a father to your son who will then pass it on to the next generation. And that's exactly what it is here, because Jor-El mentions that, you know, he learned all of this from his father, his Kal's grandfather, and now Kal has to do that and has to, you know, keep that sort of tradition moving on. I also kind of like it in the idea of the absolute universe in general, which is a universe born out of Darkseid. So you expect this world to be full of pain, suffering, death, which it is, but then you have these characters like Superman who, you know, kind of cut through all of that, and their core values are all still there and intact, and what makes Superman Superman is still there. He is still very much Superman despite this dark dystopian world he has been born into. So I mentioned just before about how this is kind of Jor-El kind of imparting, you know, tradition onto his son, and that is exactly what it is, because there's this twist here where, well, Jor is right in teaching his son the right and wrong about, you know, you can only take a life if it's like a last option, and we have here Kal kind of rebelling against that and deciding he is not his father. And there's this brilliant ramp up in tension here where, you know, he's saying that Superman will eventually kill. Jor-El has done it, his grandfather did it, it becomes something that everyone must do, but Kal knows he doesn't have to be like his father or grandfather or his people. He's going to be Superman, and finds another way as Primus demands that he finish off Chris before he gets up and murders countless others. When Superman doesn't respond, she goes in for the kill herself, and Superman melts her weapon with his heat vision. Primus calls him a coward for saving the villain as Raish and his army arrive, but demanding that she not talk that way to the son of the demon. So I fully expected, like what I theorized, a big reveal here with Raish being, you know, Jor-El related to Kal in some way, but Aaron is quick to kind of nip that in the butt and reveal that Raish has actually been just talking in general terms when he calls Kal his son, knowing that he's not by blood. However, that might soon change since the blood is about to come, and kind of and he's saying that in a way that it's going to like christen Kal as his son, more or less. Chris soon awakens from his daze and knows that he was chosen for this, but Raish takes his gun, telling him that he was more a sacrificial lamb than anything else. Raish fires the gun at Chris, and Superman jumps in front of the bullet, catching the kryptonite bullet despite it hurting him. Raish knows that Superman is angry at the state of the world, but his anger is righteous, and he wants to use that anger to save the world from itself and remake it. So see, this is why I assumed Raish was just an older Jor-El or a different Kryptonian. You know, they're talking about remaking the world, saving the world, all things that Jor-El and his people wanted Krypton, but the higher-ups would not listen to them. It's a really neat bait and switch, and I do kind of like that Ra's is just Ra's al Ghul. He's not a secret character. I did like to think that maybe that could have been a cool twist, but I do like that we're not going there, at least at this moment, and Ra's al Ghul is just Ra's al Ghul. I also really like that he's constantly calling Kal his son, like he's trying to force it to happen. If he keeps saying it's going to happen, or keeps referring to Kal as his son, it's going to become a reality. Superman tells him that he will never be his son, but Ra's knows he will, given the time, as Superman is stabbed in the back kryptonite blade by Primus, who kicks Hero down as the rest of the Omega Men are murdered by her, as she reveals herself to indeed be Talia al Ghul, has been working with her father all along, with the Omega Men and everything that has been happening in the last couple of issues all being a big ploy to get Superman right here at this moment. Ra's tells Superman that he isn't worthy of being called a child of Al Ghul yet, but they will teach him. So there's an interesting line there with, Ra's mentioning his child of Al Ghul, like he refers to, Talia as a child of Al Ghul, and that makes me think that maybe Talia isn't actually his daughter, and like maybe she had the same fate that is waiting for Kal, in that she was forced to become his daughter, and maybe that's how he works. Very cult leader, religious leader-esque, accepting these people as his children, quote unquote. And I think of it as a bit more of a fucked up Wayne family, where, Bruce gets all of these orphans and children and makes them his kids, and that's kind of like what Ra's is doing here, just in like a very more fucked up way. It's a totally new take on Ra's al Ghul, and one that I was not expecting in a Superman book of all things. And just having Ra's be a Superman villain this time around is just fucking interesting as hell. Absolute Superman issue 10 was firing on all cylinders right from page 1. Aaron finally fully reveals his take on Superman's no-kill rule and how it comes about finding it for himself, tying it to his family's traditions, and how in youth you don't have to be tied to the traditions of your family or anything. You can stand out on your own and make your own path, and tie that in with Ra's al Ghul's storyline that's been developing over the last couple of issues, and you've got one of the best issues of the series so far. Just saying something, since all of the issues so far have been an absolute blast and just absolute bangers. They've all been absolutely fantastic. I'm going to give this issue a 10 out of 10.